There's a software tool called Humantic AI. What it does is it personality profiles someone disc profile based on their LinkedIn, and it's pretty damn accurate. But so for our clients, when we book meetings for them, they know the personality profile of the person they're meeting, and it tells you how to sell to them. So it's like they get a crazy outsized return, because even if they don't have that sales experience and intuition, they're going to know how to sell to them. So they know whether should they ask questions, should they tell stories, should they let the person speak a lot, what should they actually do in the interaction.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Matt Lakayev. He's founder and CEO of Betterline, which is a company in Sydney, Australia. He told me to be very specific about that, which is all about helping businesses to grow using AI and good sales techniques. So obviously that's what
Pretty
we're
much
talking about. Also host of the AI Sales Revolution podcast, so I'm under a bit of pressure already.
That's it.
But Matthew, welcome to join us today.
Thanks. Awesome to be here. I'm stoked to chat about sales. I love it. I love nerding out about sales.
I know you
do.
from our little chat before, where we probably got all the good stuff. Like, oh no, we need to record this.
We left it there.
Well, no, there's a couple of really I want to start with two things. I can't do that. But there's a couple of things I want to touch on. But could you just give us a little bit of your background, actually? I don't usually go massively into people's backgrounds, but it's mega relevant in this situation, I think.
Yeah, sure. Well, we super brief. So dropped out of school, was a bad kid, not on the right path. Then finally fell into being a professional coffee artist. So I traveled around the country doing latte art. Fell into owning a cafe with my brother, which we ran and we sold after, I think, nearly 2 years, which was great. Then I didn't want to do coffee anymore, so I jumped into accounting, did that for a couple of years, realized I hated it. It wasn't my thing. Don't really talk to anyone. It's quite sad. And then I just started looking around at other jobs, and my friend was working at Zoom at the time. So he's one of my childhood friends. And luckily he, I interviewed, I didn't actually get in at the start, but then he chased all the way up to the CMO, Janine at the time, one under Eric Yuan, the CEO, and said, give this guy a shot. And then I finally got into Zoom, which was great. And then I spent the next 3 years there, pre-COVID, post-COVID, got promoted 3 times, fell in love to sales. And then I did a brief stint at Clary before I went into Telesense. So I was part owner in Telesense, a company that I'd worked with whilst I was at Zoom. Then I spent the next 6 months, we scaled the company from 2 to 12 people like crazy. I just sold like crazy. And then I realized operations was actually a thing in a business that you need to scale. You just can't just sell. You got to have operations. So blew up the company. And then Michael and I decided that, we actually had so much business and I didn't want to do operations anymore. So I decided to leave and do Betterline. So that's where we are today. We're officially launching next week. So by the time this podcast comes out, we'll be launching. So we work specifically with business owners in Sydney doing at least $1.5 million in turnover who sell B2B, who want to grow. And so we're going to align with them. And we're only going to take on one client every 2 weeks for this whole year to make sure we serve them the best. And what we do is we rebuild their offer. We then use all tools and stuff to actually find their ideal clients. We book meetings on them, 20 meetings in 10 weeks, so they get a refund. And then we actually record their meetings and use AI insights to help them sell more. So we're just partnering with them to actually grow, which is, it's been super exciting thus far, using all the tools to do it.
Awesome. Well, we will touch on some of those tools.
Yeah.
Mate, there's about 20 different podcasts just in that. I mean, of course, everyone wants to know the bad boy stuff.
There's a crazy story. It's a weird story.
If we get enough feedback from it, we'll do the bad boy, like as a bonus episode. I mean, coffee art as well. I mean, and there's a whole thing about being so defined in your niche and being very deliberate about who you want to work with. I mean, that's admirable, sir, if I may say so.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's all Alex Hormozy. I've read his book. I'm on my 9th read now, and he just talks about the riches being in the niches, and like everyone just has like the consumption of the scarcity versus something fallacy in business where everyone is scared that it's going to dry up when inevitably it just won't. So I found the more you niche down, the more you can charge for your product. Like you don't even have to change the core product. You just increase the price based on how niche you go, which is, yeah. A lot of people just say they serve everyone, but inevitably you serve no one.
Oh, and that's one of the you were reading his stuff, if I understand correctly, when you were at Zoom, because one of the principles, one of the things that you've latched onto, I think he talks about absolute conviction, and that was
Yeah.
something that you took into the way you were operating then to generate some of that success. So
yeah,
we want to talk about sales prospecting, particularly on this, but though I can see us going off all over the shop.
yeah.
How did you apply that then in your sales prospecting when you were kind of doing that as a day job?
So I didn't know Alex Hormozy back at Zoom, but I still had very similar conviction. I think it came from owning a business. When my brother and I started our cafe, we worked for 4 months straight. We didn't even have a day off, and we worked from like 5 a.m. till 3 o'clock. I'm not saying cry me. We actually loved it. It was awesome. But you just learned the value of like literally hard work and being convicted in what you do. And then from there, it just stemmed into Zoom, where I went from accounting, where it doesn't matter how much work you do, you still earn the same amount of money, to a job which I didn't even know sales existed. And it's like the harder you work, the more money you earn. And I'm like, this is awesome. What do you mean the harder, more money I earn? This is the best job ever. Like I'm so incentivized. So I used to sit there for like, I think you take to my friends there, I sat there for like, 10, 12 hours a day. Just like I was in like a lead sourcing kind of role at the time. And I sit there and I got number 1 in the world after 2 quarters, just because I was like, I can just keep earning more money. Which was, I don't know, just always had that type of thing, because I don't know, having a job where you can just earn more money the harder you work, I just find it's really rewarding.
I just, in my mind, I compare this to accounting, where you work dead hard, 12-hour day, and you leave and you come back, there's still loads of accounting to be done.
Yeah, it was very, very hard. Like I love my ex-boss Nick from there like a lot, but like, just trying to negotiate to get higher salary and stuff like that is very, very difficult to find true ROI when you're doing accounting. But in sales, ROI is very, very easy to find. It's just how much business did you book? So it makes a lot of sense, which I really like about it.
So you really kind of doubled down on that and just applied yourself. And is that about using kind of routine, about getting good habits?
It was
bad habits, maybe. I don't know. Did you do some stuff that you look back and think, maybe that's a little bit too extreme?
Zoom wasn't that. It was more around the fact that like you just have to do the same repetitive motion over and over again. And when you make coffee, like I used to work at places where you'd sell like a couple of thousand coffees a day. You're just doing the same thing over and over and over. And that's essentially what the OAE role at Zoom was. We're just on an online chat and manning the phones, and you're just trying to get people to qualify them to give a meeting to an AE. So just the more time you spent doing it and the more you refine the craft, you got better. So I just found it, I guess it's doing that mind-numbing work over and over, I found just produces the results, which I don't know, I guess I just did it naturally.
Interesting. I'm wondering, actually, have you just said something there where the secret actually is? I mean, you said, yes, it's mind-numbing work, and you can sit and you can do it and let it become mind-numbing and literally do exactly the same thing every time. But you also said the more you refine the craft. So you're doing the same thing, but then you're looking at it and going, but could that be a tiny bit different? Could I just make a little tweak? And so it's slightly different every time. You're getting better and better and better. Makes it a bit less boring, but of course you're getting better. Do you think that's probably one of the secrets?
I think that's my whole prospecting methodology. So even though that wasn't prospecting, it's just volume and then A/B testing along the way. Like you just do massive volume, and then you just make sure you're A/B testing. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? If you're not getting results, but just do that thing, heaps of volume, like more volume than other people do, and then just constantly refine it as you go. And then that's what I found just within prospecting in general is just the easiest way to do it. Like the more and more you niche down or the more you work a market, the better you should just be getting.
Okay, so there's an alarm gone off in the office here. Yeah. When you're talking about volume and prospecting.
Yeah.
I think we might just need to define this, because I suspect what you're saying is different to how many people might hear that and what a lot of people do. So can you just talk to us about that? Set my mind at rest, please. I'm shaking it.
Yeah, I think in sales, in Australia in particular, I don't know about the rest of the world because I can't speak about that, but I think there's just a gross under expectation of the amount of volume that you're meant to do and the amount of reps that you need to put in to get good. Like one of my really good friends, Jono, he was a BDR at Zoom. So he had to do outbound calling. He made it to President's Club after 2.5 months of 4 quarters globally. Like he was top in the globe, but it's because he just sat there with his mobile phone and looked in the CRM at the closed loss opportunities for like a year ago. And he just made $100 every day. He literally did that for like months. And to get his last deal, he actually called on a Saturday. And he just sat in the room by himself. I think it took him 2.5 hours. And he just did gross amount of volume. And that's just how to get the results. And then at the end of it, he was a wizard, right? He just called and booked so many meetings. But I think a lot of people just greatly underestimate the amount of volume that people get put in to get good.
Okay. So what I was yeah, no, I get it. So what I was saying there is when people hear volume, they might think that Jono had found a way to game the system. He'd found this cheeky way of merging a whole bunch of things, and he could press a button and he could fire out 20,000 pieces of outreach in 0.4 of a second, and so could then sit back and go, yeah, done with volume, mate. It's not that at all. That's what I've heard that it is call after call after call, which is all different specific to that person. We're not talking that mechanized mass outreach type stuff. All right.
Oh, look, being completely transparent, that's when I got into my AE role at Zoom, that's all I did actually. So at Zoom, we had an amazingly strong domain, and I don't think this will work anymore, and it only works for specific companies, but I didn't actually do any cold calling at Zoom at all. All I did is I just got a whole bunch of emails out of Zoom Info, which didn't even exist in the CRM. So people that have never spoken to Zoom, and Zoom sold a phone product. So I just imported them and I sent 80,000 emails in a year and booked, I think I had 700 meetings that year. And all I did was a 3-touch email that just said, hey, we're Zoom. We have a phone system. You'd never chatted to us before. You want to chat? Second email was thoughts. Then the third email was just bad timing ? But in saying that, even though I did that, I still had to reply to emails for 1 to 2 hours a day from responses and still had to have the meetings.
Oh, interesting. So, hey, not heard of us? Literally that thoughts email. And then what was the other one?
Bad timing ?
Wow.
That was it. But the only reason you could do that is because we were Zoom. It would not work with a small company. Like if you're like Google and you did that, it would work because people will take a meeting with Google.
Yeah, have you heard of us? Yeah, that massive. Yeah, okay, got you.
Yeah.
Of course I have. Yeah, we got a phone. Oh, have you? Oh, I can see. Yeah. Okay, so but again, that's playing with the cards you've been dealt, isn't it? And
yes, exactly.
Working that, yeah. But interesting. You said I'm not sure. Well, it wouldn't work if you're not Zoom. But I think did you just say I'm not even sure that would work now?
I am so far out of the email game. So I did emailing a lot at Zoom, and I've seen how there's big email deliverability issues now. I spoke to my friend Pablo at Mailshake, and he's really educated me on it a lot. And there's massive deliverability issues, especially for smaller organizations as well. So when I went to telesense from Zoom, I couldn't email, right? Because if we destroy our domain, or even if we buy dummy domains, it was way out of my wheelhouse for technicality. So I just had to pivot and do cold calling. And especially our website was terrible, right? It's not like we had a brand name, but you have to kind of just deal with the cards you've got, like on the actual business you've got itself, and then make it work what it's actually going to work for you.
Yeah, and maybe people change, the consciousness has changed in that it's kind of like you've made no effort to personalize that. If you're not making an effort to personalize, I'm not making an effort to talk to you. I literally just before we connected, I was just looking at my emails and somebody sent me one to try to sell me a product based on the webinar that I run regularly, but he forgot to put in the title of the webinar. I couldn't even be bothered to paste that. I see you run, and then left it blank.
I'm like, so you run a webinar.
I said, mate, at least paste in the name of the webinar, maybe even a comment. Okay, so that's where you're talking about the we're talking about this conviction, absolute conviction, but this kind of massive action, that's another concept, another kind of principle you work to, isn't it? Remind me where that's from.
So I first heard of the term like massive action from listening to Grant Cardone's book 10x is like 10x. I hated listening to that book because he just screams at you in the audible thing. But all I remember is just talking about just literally just aim to do 10 times more than what you want. And even if you do 4 or 5 times, you're still going to get way further ahead. And so that always just plays as like a mantra to me. And Alex Hormozy talks about it a lot. It's like, he's like, you can't not do it. You're just not doing enough of it. So a lot of people now, let's say it's become harder to prospect, right? But if you doubled your output, let's say if your meeting's hard, right? If you just doubled your output, you could still make that same amount. And when a lot of people talk about, okay, our pipeline's drying up at the moment because people aren't making decisions, let's say 50% of deals, which I thought were going to close, didn't close. Well, you just need to double the amount of deals in your pipeline. Okay, so how do we actually get them there? And a lot of the time, it's just a volume game. It's like the fallacy of people, that try to work like a niche or a market, and then they're like, there's not enough people. Like, let's say someone's selling weight loss, and there's not enough people. It's like half the population. From my thought process is like, most problems can just be solved with more volume. And then as you do more and more volume, you learn what's working along the way, instead of at the start strategizing and theorizing about things that probably won't even matter after you make $500, which you'll realize at that time, but you can only realize until you get there.
Okay, so that's back to that constant refinement. And I've said that, well, actually,
Yes.
it'd be better if I said that, and I do that, and actually stop talking to them, because that really doesn't matter to them. Right. So I've refined myself a little bit, but it's just again, to commit to do the hard yards, isn't it?
It's just that, and it's just actually doing action. So like, it's just doing the action. And just the really beautiful thing in sales and business, which I like, is like, it pays outsized returns. So like in business and sales, like, it's not like baseball where you just hit it and you get 3 points or whatever, or home run, or however it works, right? You can strike 20 times.
There's loads of people who've just gone nuts with that. What? How'd you get 3 points?
Yeah.
Love it.
Whatever.
Love
you get 3 runs because you got 3 bases filled or whatever it's called, right? You get however it happens, right? But like in business, like, you can throw 20 things at the wall, and then you can get 1,000x return. And that's the same in like sales. Like, the biggest deal I ever closed, I ain't going to claim that I did a lot for it. It was part of my mass emails, and I caught a guy who was the COO of a massive company, and then they were just having trouble with their phone system. And he literally just got on a call with me, and he's like, "Oh, Zoom's got a phone system." I'm like, "Yeah, you want a PSA?" And he's like, "Yeah, cool." And then I had a really good solutions engineer the guy who spoke Mandarin, who also spoke Mandarin, and I just put them together, and my SE just closed the deal in 3 weeks. But it's like, unless I sent those emails or did those actions, the luck, wouldn't have just fell from the sky, and people could have not done the action, and then nothing would have happened.
Yeah. It's the make your own luck thing, isn't it? Is the golfer who says, I was lucky. Yeah, more practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the things. I like my business partner from TeleSense, Michael. He's like a connector, right? He does a networking group called BNI, and he connects a lot of people together. This guy, he just has $100,000 deals just fall out of the sky, because someone's just like, "Oh yeah, Michael does phone systems," and just literally a deal will come to him. Like a deal we closed recently, I think, is worth to him a total contract value of 150 grand over a couple of years. But this is from like 2 years ago he met them, and it just fell out of the sky just because he did that effort in the prospecting.
And so that is about putting yourself out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which again, I'm thinking maybe that can be translated into not making massive action, that people go, so personal branding, then that's what you're saying, guys. I need to be putting myself out there with content, and make sure my LinkedIn profile is right, and providing this, that, and the other, and kind of doing all the fun stuff. And you're kind of going, so people who like listening to this, you're sort of putting a bit of a face going, well, just talk to me about that.
I think it just depends on, I think most things that people do, they just, in general, from what I've learned, take my opinion as a big Himalayan grain of salt, right? This is just my opinion. But I think most things that I've ever done or done successfully have just when I've done a crazy amount of work. Like, let's say latte art, right? So I used to compete at competitions, and I used to be really good. I built an Instagram following to 25,000 people, but like, people don't realize that like I did that for 4 years, and I posted pretty much every day for 4 years. And I literally did latte art. I probably poured tens of thousands of cups of coffee to get to that point. And I think a lot of it is just purely around a volume game. Like, I have a social media manager right now because I'm I said to him, I'm like, cool, if my social stuff is anywhere in 3 years, that's where I want to get. Because I think it's just that long game. And I think a lot of people will say cold call, right? And they'll make 20, 30 dials, and they'll do it for like a month, and they just don't get results. And then nothing comes from it. I think a lot of it's just that volume game. You just need to put in a crazy amount of action. Like Alex Hormozy says it best. He just says, at first you will suck, but just make sure you do so much work that it will just be completely unreasonable for you to suck anymore. And I kind of just live by that now.
Repeat. At first you will suck, but...
Yep. At first you will suck, but just make sure you do so much work that it would be completely unreasonable for you to suck anymore. Like it just wouldn't, you can't suck anymore because you've done so much work.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the past a little bit. We don't want to dwell too much in the past. We certainly want to learn from it, and you've taken that and used it to slingshot yourself here into the future. Here into the future, well, you know what I'm trying to say. Here into the present, and looking towards the future. Yeah, where we're at now. It's early here, mate. It's early. So with the new business and some of the stuff I can see you're starting to put out on socials now, you're leaning very much towards AI and being very public about that.
Yes.
And of course, why wouldn't you? So yeah, intrigued to sort of know a little bit more about some of the stuff that you are doing or going to be doing using that to crank up the volume, if you like.
Yeah, I'll take it from start from the principles standpoint of why I see the value in it. So Naval Ravikant, who's like a super famous, notable guy, he talks about like 4 types of leverage, and there's like a pyramid. So the first type of leverage is labor. So you can use labor as a type of leverage. Then you can use capital. Then you can use media. Then you can use software. And I believe there's one missing at the top, and that's called AI. And that is like the ultimate point of leverage. And when I've used some of the tools around it, and when you build it into your process, you just get crazy outsized returns, like inefficiency. And it's not a magic trick. It takes a long, long period of time to do it, but you get crazy outsized returns, like things I'm doing now. So like I want to create carousels. So to do that, all I do is I take the 1-minute shorts that I've done, and then I literally just get to Script, which is an AI tool, which we mentioned before. I just pull the script out. I just paste it into ChatGPT, and then I just ask it to split into 8 simple parts. And then I just give that to my social media manager. But then from there, now that I've processed that, I can just give it to my ops team who can just do it for me. So I can just say, hey, I need 30 carousels for LinkedIn for the whole month. And they can get it done at a fraction of the cost using AI. That's like one example of another one is paying outsized returns. There's a software tool called Humantic AI. What it does is it personality profiles someone disc profile based on their LinkedIn, and it's pretty damn accurate. But so for our clients, when we book meetings for them, they know the personality profile of the person they're meeting, and it tells you how to sell to them. So it's like they get a crazy outsized return, because even if they don't have that sales experience and intuition, they're going to know how to sell to them. So they know whether should they ask questions, should they tell stories, should they let the person speak a lot, what should they actually do in the interaction. So these are a couple of examples, but I kind of started playing around with ChatGPT and then started the podcast that we had and just interviewed so many people, and it just the returns you get from the investment put in, I've never seen anything as crazy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I love that pyramid you said, and the geek in me is going, actually, that is basically the different revolutions that we've had. You know, labour's the industrial revolution, isn't it? True. And basically we are. Yeah. I don't think it's too dramatic to say we are in a different revolution now.
Yeah.
30th of November 2022, life changed. You know, and people might think we're being a bit extremist on that, and we're AI geeks or whatever. But it's interesting the stuff you've said there. In that I don't think it can't do everything for you. It's interesting that the carousel's a great example. In that it's doing all the heavy lifting and the boring bit, but that 1 minute short, that's had to come from Matthew Lakiev. That thing that you're saying that is going to be interesting to Fred Copestake and everybody else who is out there who wants to listen to you, you've got to synthesize that stuff. Yeah, and definitely. Then speak it in the kind of the very first outset, and then it does all that other stuff, which is very easy.
Yeah, definitely. It comes to another point, I guess, of for myself, I have a social media manager now, and he's putting out a shit ton of content like crazy, and I pretty much just do what he says and trust him, because he's built a gamer to like 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He's great, and like we surpassed 12 days it took us to get 100,000 views on my videos, which is I started with a 0 following. This is without LinkedIn, which is awesome. But in my opinion, the only real way that anyone can completely separate themselves in business, or the one thing that no one can steal from you, is your personal brand identity. They can steal your systems, your processes, they can steal everything. Everything is free online with AI, but your brand is something that will no one can replicate that, ever. And that's why I feel in the future, in like, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, like the wealth people, like I think Mr. Beast is going to be one of the richest people in the world. That guy has like a craziest media following ever. He just hasn't really monetized it like as well yet. But I think the future is like, we look at like the Kardashians and stuff, right? Like, how did Kylie become like a billionaire, right? It's insane. Like, does she have the business acumen skills? No, it's just media. It's just that personal branding piece, which then stems from that triangle again as well, is, in my opinion, the only way you can separate yourself, like in business in the future, will be the only way.
I'm so much on the same page again. I'm inclined to agree because, again, let's go back to GPT. Got it wrong. I know my wife says it wrong. She says Chat GPT, and I go, oh, I've just said it wrong. And she'll be listening to this, and I won't be able to live it down. I'm not going to edit it. I'll leave it. What people are going to be able to crank out, shed loads of stuff, and are doing. And I think we're kind of going to get people who just crank it out and put it straight out. It's like no refinement to it, and it's you can even already sense that's you've not written that. But then when stuff is being put out there, I think there'll be people who get away with almost not refining it because of who it comes from. It's like, well, okay, if he said that, that's pretty cool, and you won't kind of read it so carefully to go, that's got nothing behind it, or that's kind of not had any refinement to it. But I guess the point is that the person has asked a better question anyway, or has used it to make something that is in line with all the stuff they've stood for and that brand that they built.
Yeah, I think, look, there's many things. I don't think it's not like perfect and still requires a crazy amount of refinement. Like, definitely, like, it's not. I think a lot of people have the misconception. I've had 9 episodes of the podcast we've recorded, and every single person has said people just have a misconception that it's a magic trick. They just, like, everyone, when they're trying to sell AI in an organization, an executive just thinks like you're just going to make it work, and it still requires refinement, like any other process. Like, it still requires it, but if you take one thing, for example, right, and someone can do this right now. We're recording this podcast, right? Someone could literally put all of our information about our profiles feed it into ChatGPT somehow. They could then say, produce a podcast conversation that goes for 30 minutes in this. Then they could just put each of us speaking into Descript, which can create a perfect conversation of us actually speaking. Then someone could just put it out as well. And that would take a lot of refinement, and it'd probably take someone like a couple of days to do it. But like, this stuff is like accessible now. It's just, you just have to do the initial investment. Like, it's the initial time investment. And I think because people don't understand the outsized returns, they haven't done it themselves, they're not willing to put in that investment. Just like any software or anything like that. But once you see the outsized returns that you get, it's crazy. It's insane.
they could do that, and then on the next prompt go and make it good.
Yeah, exactly, and then just say, and
ChatGPT go, no, I can't. It's already excellent.
Yeah, it's amazing. You don't know it. I know better than you.
I can't refine that. No, I mean, interesting. I mean, just thinking about that, then we've gone off down there, which I thought we might. Mr. Beast and Kardashians and all this sort of stuff, and personal brand.
Yeah.
I mean, how can this stuff apply then to somebody who sat listening to it, who's got, I listened to that podcast, you're talking about like massive action, and they've listened to stuff and they've heard the message about having to do the hard yards, and they can apply to that, and then we suddenly got off on one about this. I mean, how do you think this then applies to an SDR, an AE, somebody who's doing this day in, day out? How can they leverage this stuff here and now, if you like?
Leverage this stuff. Okay, so should we talk about an AE or an SDR, or
talk about I mean, I tend to talk full cycle people anyway, so it's so it's a salesperson, as opposed to a opinion leader type. That's what the question is.
I think first you want to define like what type of person, because there are people and salespeople in jobs, right, who don't want to do massive action. There's people who genuinely are like, I want to work this amount of period of time, and there's a lot of people, most people like that, I would say. And so I would classify certain people in certain buckets. So I wouldn't say some type of crazy action is like the best thing for anyone, but if you want to get really far ahead, in my opinion, you have to do that. It's like the only way. Like, I think the 4-hour work week just put this thing in people's head, and it did for me for many years as well, that like you just can only work 4 hours and you get the output. But the guys that got to the point where they can work 4 hours, work 16 hours a day for a long period of time and got really good at something. Like they just did. Like no one ever got anywhere unless they did some massive, crazy amount of action, in my opinion. But like if we take an SDR, let's take cold calling as an example. So let's say if somebody is cold calling, like, but have they got, like, can you give me a scenario, and then I can come up with a creative solution, because it's very broad.
Yeah, no. So I'm thinking, I've got a list of people I want to reach out to. Yeah, I've got phone numbers, I've got emails. I've heard this stuff that AI can help me. I've heard this stuff that personal branding might help me. I want to kind of be up with the times. How can I leverage that? Because at the moment I'm just doing the same as everyone else, and I want to make that make me different.
So you got 1,000 contacts. Simple. Just get Humantic, and then just import all 1,000 contacts and attach Humantic to your CRM. It's going to tell you the personality profiles of every single person. You can actually do one-touch personality emails based on each person through Humantic. They can do that right now. So you can go through, let's say there's 1,000, let's say there's 16 different types. It's going to split them all up. And then from there, you're going to send them a personalized and personality-based email to those specific people. Reggie.ai can do this literally right now. Like this is like, you can do this right now. Humantic, and as well, even if, say, you're doing cold calling, you can split up the people that you're dialing into personality types, and then you can dial people and then have different scripts or what you say based on the personality. Like you can do that right now.
So that's the highly personalized, because you're changing the message to land in the way that they prefer to be communicated to. Before you've even met them, you can do this sort of stuff. You used to have to actually chat to people to work out how they work.
Exactly.
And a lot of salespeople wouldn't even do that very well. So now you can
if you want to
meet people before you met them.
Yeah. If you want to take it, like, let's take this like really far. If you got a lot of time, like go Don Bosco, who has Be Human. They do personalized AI videos, right? So you could go to your whole database. You could find let's say there's 10 different personality profiles. Then you can ask ChatGPT, based on these profiles, if I'm going to do a short 30-second video message, what is some things you want to note that were going to resonate with my client? Based on this is what we sell. Then you can come up with that message. Then you can record 10 different videos of yourself walking down the street saying, hi, name, company this, this is the reason you talk. You can change it per person. And then you can send 1,000 personalized AI videos on LinkedIn to each person with a personal reason, like why you should actually meet with them. So if you have a week, you could probably build that.
Love that. And the people receiving that are feeling, this is the thing that I'm really pushing on now, are feeling special because it is for them.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if you want to hyper personalize something, do the stuff you're saying, but then it needs the human eye to go and look at what the human's done. So this is the best outreach I've received in the last year. It's somebody who's looked at what I've done. They've seen a post that I put out there. I got a stupid orange hat on, and I was making a point about the orange hat because I was punning about the bone-nosed thinking hats. And she put into the outreach, that orange hat, Fred, makes you look like Bob Mortimer.
Yeah.
I'm like, no computer can do that. That immediately,
it's a surprise.
Well, it made me warm to her, and it started to get her personality across in that's someone who's like a bit of a laugh. That's what that really worked. And we can do lots of clever stuff. There's always like no substitute for that.
I think that works as well. I think that 100% works, but that works, in my opinion, because you're a salesperson and you appreciate the creativity and the wit. If you go to someone who's like a really risk-averse calculating personality type who doesn't appreciate that and they only appreciate ROI, they'll be like, this is dumb. Like, so, and I've sent sequences. Like one time I sent a sequence and it was of my dog, how it got it, he got to sex and he got his cone on his head. And then I just showed progress photos of 4 sequence emails of like, this is him with his cone. He's all sad. He finally got his cone off. He's super happy now. Do you want to meet? And someone came back to me and was like, this is the greatest email I've ever seen in my life. Holy crap, I'm putting you in touch with my person. And someone else would be like, stop sending me this spam. This is terrible. Like, what is this? So it was like,
you needed Humantics back in the day. All the yellows can have that. They love it. Come on, where's the dog?
Exactly,
I want to know about the dog.
Exactly.
You don't waste a sales meeting. You talk about your dog when they don't actually want to buy anything. But
yeah, exactly. So because some people want to spend 10 minutes to start talking about their dog. They just do. And other people will like, don't ever talk to me about my dog. This is a professional environment. Just don't do this. And I think it's And that's why I like tools like Humantic and things like that, which are going to come out over time, because you can just base your profile on this. I can talk about one other thing, which I think is the biggest hack, which no one else is doing, which has nothing to do with AI. But these are tools that you can leverage right now. You can. It just requires that time investment. Like, you do have to put in this, and it's not a sunk cost. I think a lot of people are scared it's going to be a sunk cost. It is a really good investment.
Yeah. Wow. So much to think about. So much to think about.
I can talk about this forever.
Well, so could I.
I got one other one. One other, the biggest hack that anyone can do that's by far the easiest, which literally no one does. And if you read Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers book, is just change your offer. Like, that's it. Like, everyone is like investing so much money and time in all these tools. Like, it's insane, right? We had a really good offer at TeleSense. I booked one meeting every 27 dials, cold calling. I do less than that now. Now I can pretty much like literally call 3 people and book a meeting because the offer is so good. If you just create a really, really ridiculously good offer. So we have a client right now, right? I sat with her. We built her offer over 8 hours. So her offer is, she's a growth marketing company. She partners with organizations in Australia, and she does 2 things different. The first thing is she gets an external auditing company to audit her marketing results. No banking companies do that, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, the companies that she works with that fit the bill, she writes into their services agreement that if they don't make their money back in 6 months, they get a full refund. I literally call people and I tell them this, and like, cool, let's have a meeting. If you just have a better offer, you don't even need all this AI stuff, which is like really, which is amazing. But if you fix the offer first, in my opinion, that's like the biggest hack that people can do. Like, if you have a crazy good offer.
And again, maybe people are listening to this and going, well, I work for a corporate, I can't go changing the offer.
You can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that.
Well, no, actually you can. You totally can. You understand the customer, you understand their problems, and what you say to them matches that problem and takes that away from it so effectively. That's your offer, which is for them. And that's what sales is, isn't it? That's sales. I'll just describe sales.
And then it's just niching down. Like, I'm calling for our client right now, and I called her to book meetings. And so I'm trying to get on to business coaches in Sydney, because business coaches have clients that are struggling right now to get leads. And she has a great solution for these business coaches clients. So I literally call them. I'm saying, hey, I'm calling business coaches in Sydney. My client's met with 10 of them already. She's got an amazing offer that I think you want to hear. Do you have a couple of minutes to hear about it? Sure. This is it. This is the offer. Would you be against possibly chatting with her? They're like, 100%, I'll chat with her. And I booked 15 meetings in like probably $150. It's like, you build an offer, like, and you have a really compelling thing with that conviction. It's like a cheat code. Like, it's like AI, in my opinion, for prospecting.
Brilliant. Oh man, I think we could carry on like this. So now I've got an eye on the clock. So if you are a business coach in Sydney, how can people get in touch with you? Because you don't want to talk to anybody else. No, I'm joking. I mean, people, I suspect, well, I hope, are listening to this and will want to follow you, because you are putting a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of thinking. I'm trying. Nah, it is. I'm enjoying it. So, best place to contact you?
Literally just DM in LinkedIn. I literally pulled the phone number from our business, because I was like, I just don't want to just circulate the leads into one spot. So put an inquiry in online, or just literally DM me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, you will do that. So no, brilliant, mate. Thank you. We'll put a link. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
This was super fun. I really enjoyed this. It was super
fun.
I
have, and I suspect we might be doing this again at some stage.
Definitely keen.
I really appreciate it, Matthew.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.